afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar from Anicca Digital and Anicca AI and Insights. This week, we're going to be talking about how to use AI for your content marketing. James just turned his camera off, but I was going to get him to say hello. And,
hi. There I am.
So most of you know that I'm the founder and CTO of both Anicca and Anicca AI and Insights. And believe it or not, we'll be celebrating our 20th birthday next year of Anicca Digital. But next month, we'll be celebrating the first birthday of Anicca AI Insight, which is our AI spin-off. James, what is it that you do at Anicca?
So I've been working at Anicca for a number of years. I started really in a mixture of technical SEO and analytics. But from there, I've really progressed over to doing lots of AI stuff, helping the team to automate various things, various structures and processes and workflows. In addition to that, sort of like automatically producing some content that we upload to our website and stuff like that as well. So all kinds of bits, Claude code definitely, all kinds of bits and pieces. So there we go.
Excellent. Okay, well, we're going to dive straight in, and we are going to start by giving you a little bit of an introduction. So I can't see the chat anymore. I really like that picture. You look very doleful eyes there, James.
I was younger. That picture must be like 6 to 8 years old now. But do you know what's funny? So if you quickly look at me in the camera, between that picture and how I look now, my hair went completely back to natural color and then went to black and then went to natural color and now it's back to red again. So that's how long it's been.
Okay, let's get going. So first of all, what I was hinting at when we did the quiz was that a lot of people haven't really started to use AI very much. They've probably been experimenting with basic ChatGPT, maybe Gemini. This is when you go and log in. You've probably got a free account. You're not paying the $20 that you need to get the best features. Of course, a lot of marketeers have been using automation without AI for many years. You know, every time you do an email sequence or you perhaps get a form in from something like Facebook, then you would trigger an automation. We do that a lot with Go High Level, but HubSpot, MailChimp, they've all got automations using things like Zapier, which have been around for a very long time. The real jump is when you start to do custom GPTs and projects. And this is the reason this is such a big jump is because it starts to use the elements that are required when you build a full AI agent, and that is you need a prompt that's really well structured and has detailed instructions and context. And the context is also often provided by templates and examples of what good looks like. And also there's a memory. So as you go from one conversation to another, it will remember it. And what this allows us to do, if you think of it like a recipe, I always use food as an example of this. If you are, you're building up a book of recipes, in my case for my grandkids, when they come around and we want to do some cooking, the first few times are pretty rubbish. But after a while, what you can do is you can improve your technique. You can save examples, take photographs, and you can put it all down in a scrapbook. And what we're basically doing when we start to look at custom GPTs and Claude projects is that we can actually start to save that and into something called a skill. And a skill is really important because it's the currency that a lot of the new AI that's sort of used up here is as a way of packaging all the information that you need if you want to do a specific task or a specific job, or you need a specific tool. So I would definitely say that most of you need to jump to this level. Now, I wasn't planning to do a plug on this, but last Thursday, we did a free webinar on prompting and how LLMs work, which was part of our Thursday AI Club, which we meet every other week. And if you sign up, I'll contact us. We can give you that video. You can get it on the Secret Agents website, which James will share. But next Thursday, the Thursday AI Club is actually doing a whole 2-hour workshop on this topic. So if any of you are really interested in finding out how you can go from this basic level, that is definitely worth jumping into there. We have done webinars on this before, so there is stuff around that you could go and look for free. But for me, this is really where you start to use AI properly, because you would create a custom GPT or a Claude project for a specific thing you wanted to do, and you'd have a different one for each project. So you might have one for all of your LinkedIn posts, or you might have one for all your personal blogs. Or if you're an agency, you might have one for all Charles Bentley's blogs, or you might have one for all experience blogs. Do you see what I mean? Because they can be completely bespoke and have things like their brand guidelines and everything. But the key is, to get access to these tools, you've got to start paying $20 a month. And that is the step. But the amount of time that it will save you, I mean, myself and James have been using these for pretty much a year now, before we sort of went a few more steps up the ladder. But it's absolutely opens the world to huge improvements in productivity and quality of the work that you produce, because you spend time perfecting it. You basically build it, and then you bottle it as a skill or as a project that you can come back and use again. The next step on the ladder is automation, and this is automation that's got AI in it. And actually, James asked a question about this in the poll. So I've used NAN as example, but there's Make and there's others out there as well that you can use. And what this is where you've got a load of modules all linked together, and they all do a different task or a different function. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a minute. But the main thing about this is that it's sort of laid out like a flow chart, and something triggers it at the beginning, and then a whole series of things happen, and then humans will get involved halfway through, or it might run completely autonomously. And that's really what we mean by an AI agent. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what that looks like, because unless you've been to one of our presentations before, most people don't really understand what an AI agent is. Now, number 5 is AI agents, but they're a different type of AI agents, because whereas this is predictive and it's sort of laid out in a sort of defined task, this is really different, because these are interactive and you work with them in a different way. And the main thing about the agents that we work with, which is predominantly Claude Code, although Codex, which is OpenAI, and Anti-Gravity from Google work in a similar way, they have access to your desktop. So they have access to your file. They can also link up with external tools and external software, and they can do things for you. You know, they can create things, they can search the web for you, they can even interact with a website for you. So this is where we are now. We spent most of last year, the AI team, Anicca, here, but it was quite frustrating. Things took a long time, and often we would get, it would break and it was a bit clunky. So most of the things that we were doing this way, we've now migrated to this version. But we actually had a whole website called secretagents.ai that was run on this process with 25 agents, and you can still get access to it today. And I'm sure James will share a link for you. So James, is there any questions about this progression? I think that's pretty simple so far.
Not at the moment. I've just been putting some notes in the chat as you talk, as I usually do.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about AI, we're really talking about 3 types of AI. So most of you in the room are using AI as an assistant. It's pretty simple. You put in a prompt or an instruction, you get a response. You either think it's okay or you don't think it's good enough. And then you go around some cycles and until you get what you like. But it's really a one-off job. And when you come next time, it's forgotten what you've done. The second type is AI automation. And this is where it's more structured. And it will often run in the background without you being involved. So if anybody's phoned the Anicca office, we've got a voice agent called AI Annie. She basically answers the phone and tries to get your details and tries to help you. And if you ask, she'll actually book a meeting with me or with Sean. And I don't know anything about it. It just happens in the background. It's just going along, chugging along quite happily. And what happens is I get an email with a confirmation that somebody has phoned in. And if they book a meeting, then I'll get something in my calendar. So that's a good example of AI automation. And they can be fully autonomous, which means humans don't get involved at all, or you can bring humans in halfway through. Now, the type that we're really passionate about is this third type. And really, they started to appear sort of October last year, but there was a few changes that happened sort of February time where we started to use them with earnest. And what I mean by that, 15 to 18 hours a day, because they completely take over your life and you just end up doing everything with them, creating every single document, every single dashboard you can possibly imagine, every slide deck. All of this was created. My blog every week is created. And the big difference with this is that you work with it to get specific things done. And depending on how you've trained it and how you've set it up, at the moment, there's nothing that I can imagine or I would request that it can't do. However, for the first few months of that time, you needed to be quite technical to use it. And particularly Claude Code, and the code is a bit of a diversion really, because you don't have to code to use it, but it was nearly all coders that were using it. And then there was a few technical people like us that had already learned how to do this stuff. We were sort of familiar how to do vibe coding, to vibe code websites and dashboards. So we were able to pick it up with a little bit of training quite quickly. But in May, something significant happened. And that's that Claude Code became available as a download in what's called Claude Desktop. So suddenly you didn't have to have anything to do with the technical world at all. You could literally use it as if it was a normal app. Just going to take a drink of water. James, if you want to pop in as we get to the end of the slide.
Sure. Yeah, what you're saying is essentially when it was initially introduced, there was much more programmatic knowledge that was needed in order to fully leverage Claude Code, little bits of API knowledge and stuff like that. But once it hit the desktop environment, briefly before that, it hit some other AI-empowered development environments like IDEs like Cursor and stuff. But then after that, Anthropic said, yeah, we want this integrated into our own main Claude application. And so it became integrated, didn't it?
So what we thought we would do is we would show you what we were doing last year, because it's so really important that you understand the concepts of what AI is doing for us. And it's not necessarily going to change your job or what you do, but it's going to change the tasks and the way that you do some of them. So I thought we'd use this one as an example. Now, this is actually a board of something called Make. We use NAN, but you'll see that in a minute. Now, the reason I show you this one, it's really obvious what each one of these do. And these are called the nodes, so or modules, they're sometimes called. And each of them does a specific task. And it starts with a Google Sheet, which I'm going to show you what that looks like. It's really simple. And every 15 minutes, it goes and looks for that Google Sheet and to see what it's saying and if there's any jobs for it to do. So on that Google Sheet, of course, there's a controller which say, yes, I want you to do this for me. So I'm going to show you that in a minute. Now, for it to talk to your Google Sheet, it has to have access. So you either have to sort of log in, or we have to provide something called an API key, or a secret, it's sometimes called, which is a way of accessing, for example, Facebook or accessing LinkedIn. So one of the things that this does is it teaches you how it is laid out. And also, in order to do each of these things, you are going to need to connect it to certain tools or certain software that you might want to use. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick to the slide, the sheet, and then I'm going to come back because I think it's useful to do it like that. So the first thing is, this is a Google Sheet, because Google Sheets can be accessed by AI very easily because they're on the web. And the first column is a load of AI ideas about content marketing that we might want to create a post or a blog about. Then we've got a middle column, which is where the text content will go. And you can see the first row is partially complete. An attempt at a blog has been made. You can see there's some emojis and some hashtags there. And there's even the image that you would use to go with that blog. And this is the controller column. And the controller column has 4 statuses. And this one is create a post, but that's because it's halfway through. Whereas these ones, the status is generate the content. So if you think about it, you want the AI to generate your content, send it back to you. You want to then review it and see if you want to make any changes. So it's ready for review. You then say, yeah, that's great. Go and create me a post. And then when it's done it, it wants to confirm. So those are each of the different statuses, and that is controlled in this column. Now, in order for the AI to do this, it has to be able to read this sheet. It also has to write in that column as well, and also write in these columns because it's got to put the content in there and it's got to put the image in there. So let's flick back. And if you've seen this before, I do apologize, but it's something that everybody needs to understand, because if you want to create content or you want to work with AI, you need to understand that you have to break it into a series of tasks. And in some cases, you even get sort of like a social media manager as an agent that has a load of sub-agents that do each of these jobs for you. But this is the version we're working with at the moment. Okay, so it goes and gets the data. Now, if it says create a post, it will go along the top. This is like a router or a switch. And if it says post the content, it goes along the bottom. So if it goes along the top, what it will do is it will take the first column, it uses OpenAI, and it will go and write that content. Now, it won't write any old content. It will write content according to the instructions or the prompt that you've given it. And that prompt is quite complicated. I'm not going to go into prompting today because we've got too much we need to cover. But the details and the way that you instruct it will then generate the type of content that you want. And that's going to be really important when you come on to the rest of the presentation, when James is starting to tell you how he creates content now. Then what happens, that is passed over to the image generator. Again, it's OpenAI. And then that information is sent over to the sheet. I think there should be another node here that sends me a message and say, come on, Anne, you need to review this. But assume I'm working in the sheet and I see it. I'll then say, okay, I need to tweak that. Let's post it. And then this time it'll go through the bottom route, but something slightly different. This is what we call a webhook or an HTTP webhook, and it has to go and grab that content from the sheet. So this is really important because one of the things about using APIs and AI is that quite often you have to grab information or send, post or pull, or get or post information to other places and other pieces of software. So this is an example where we're getting that content and then we pass it along to the next one. And this one has been linked to your Facebook. So it sends it to Facebook. Then it goes to the next one. This has been linked to your Instagram. So it's been instructed how to do that because, of course, that format will be different from that one. And then that one will go to LinkedIn. And then finally, it will be sent into Google Sheets. So this is a really easy way of understanding the elements that AI needs if you're going to do a sequence of events like an AI agent would do, is that you've got a trigger. In this case, you've got a switch or a route. You've got an LLM, OpenAI, that's creating content. So that needs to be linked to that LLM. So in this case, we'd have to link to OpenAI, and we'd have to get the API key to allow us to give access. And then it goes over to another part of OpenAI, which is generate the image. And then that's transferred over to Google Sheet. And then along the bottom, webhook, a node that sorts out Facebook, a node that sorts out Instagram, a node that sorts out LinkedIn, and then on to Google Sheets to confirm that it's all happened. So that is what an AI agent looks like. I think it would be useful to stop and see if anybody's got any questions at this point, and then I'll go to the next slide.
None so far, but you are getting some reactions, so that's nice.
Okay, cool. So what we wanted to do was show you an NAN flow that is the what we did October last year. Now I'm going to give James total credit. He designed the first one, and then so he did all this research and scraping, got the content, and then manually did it. I added the so basically James got to here. I then added the image, and then I added the upload to WordPress. So it was sort of a bit of a joint effort that evolved over a period of time. And that would happen at midnight on a Thursday, and mine would happen on a Sunday. And we would get that, and a blog would be created. We'd go and edit it, and then we'd go and post about it. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you what that looks like, because if you're going to write a blog on news about search engine marketing, which was James, and mine's AI in marketing and AI in management, you've got to have a decent selection of URLs in the first place. So we had to go and find them. And they were a mix of media sites and blogs and RSSs. But you can go and find these yourself. You don't have to use ours. You will go and find your own one. And then what happens is we created this massive flow, which looks like this. I'm going to not spend too much time on this, but I'm going to try and make you understand what happens, because this is exactly the same as what James is doing, except for he's doing it in 5 steps, and he's using Claude Code to do it without having this very complicated workflow, which would break quite regularly and would be a bit of a nightmare. So first of all, you've got a trigger. So this would be a timer. And in Mike, I think we had some instructions and a list of URLs. Then each of these is a separate URL. And we'd use something called a web scraper. Was this Tavily? I can't remember which one you use. It looks like
it's either Tavily or Scraping Beat. I think in this case it is Tavily, because it only needed the content. And also it only needed the content, didn't need the code. So yeah.
So it goes and scrapes that one, then it goes and scrapes that one, then it goes and scrapes that one, and each time it brings it back and it passes it on to the next. Now we're asking it to scrape a week's worth of articles. I'll let James say the ones he's scraping from, but some of these have got huge numbers of articles, and some of them, they've got the same story in a couple of different places. And so what you end up with this massive file with all this information, so you have to process it a little bit, and then you use an AI agent. This is what we mean by an AI agent. And we had to use Gemini. At that time, it was the only one that was big enough to cope with all of this, because agents can only cope with a certain volume of stuff. And if you've got scrapes from 25 sites, or however many it is, 24 sites, whatever it is, that can take up a lot of space. And then there was a couple of messages that went round, so you can ignore all that. But this then went through a little bit of processing. And then what we got to is we actually got to the blog that we wanted. And then from there, we got a description of what the image would look like. And you've got a seed image in here. And then you've got OpenAI Image Creator. And what we were using the editor function rather than the create function, because we wanted it to be like the one the week before. And we didn't want it to make, it would do some really crazy stuff. And to be honest, this bit took me weeks to get right. And then once I realized you needed to use a template and edit it, that was the key. And I've got that for loads of things like carousels. We still use that approach now. So that then gets you your image, which you have to convert into a file that can be used. So first of all, it creates it as what's called a bit64, which is just basically thousands and thousands of digits. You then have to convert that into a file that can be uploaded into WordPress. You then have all that information that you've got before. That then loads it into WordPress with the image, and then we will get an email or a message so that we will go and check it, and then we can go and put it live. Okay, so that's what we're going to describe, and what we're going to show you is how much easier it is to do it now compared with what it was a year ago. I think I've got a couple of other slides here. So I'm just going to explain what Claude Code is. And there's 2 slides here. I'm not going to go through them, just to compare how they work. This is really for anybody that wants to know in a little bit more detail, and what the costs and things are as well. And then, of course, sometimes you're going to use both. Sometimes you're going to need N8N or Make for some things, and sometimes you're going to use Claude Code for other things. And sometimes you use both together. So we're not saying that one is better than the other. They're just different. And Claude Code has overtaken a lot of the things that we used to do last year. But we still use it for, like I said, the voice agent still works. I know Darren uses it for a few things still, like collecting data from lots of different APIs. He still uses it as a sort of aggregator or an automation platform. So just a little bit on getting started with Claude Code. James, could you type in anicca.co.uk/Claude-code-guide, and that should get you to the Claude Code guide. So I've created an 80-page guide which talks you through everything you need to know about Claude Code. But the most important thing is that you create a $20.
Sorry, Anne, what was the URL again?
anicca.co.uk/Claude-code-guide.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So they have changed it slightly. I noticed they changed it the last week. But basically, once you've got Claude from your browser cloud account, you hit the download button and you get it on your desktop and install it. Then you'll get these buttons. You'll get chat, co-work, and code. Now, I think in the last week, they've actually moved co-work somewhere else. But we'll see that when James goes live. And you can do a new session. This just gives me this in here. I don't use this all the time. James uses his all the time. I use a slightly different package at the moment. It's got some things here which you don't need to worry about today, some customization. And then you can see a whole load of projects which relate to a certain part of your local drive. So what you normally will do is create a local drive just called something like just Claude. And then when you start, you have to tell it which drive to go to. And then this is the prompt box. And that is what James is going to illustrate. Now, there are some other things you might want to set up later, but we're not going to do that today. And the only other thing I would mention is that when I use Claude Code, I don't type anymore. I will either use this functionality here, which is a little microphone, or I use a product called Whisper, and that allows me to describe in a lot of detail. And apart from that, I can't type very well. I'm terrible for typos. I can spell, but I can't type, which is ironic, really. But that gives me the ability to put a lot of information in. And I've spoken at Claude Code and through Whisper over 1 million words in about 4 months. So you can see how much time you can end up spending on this. So I'm just got one diagram to explain what James is going to do, and then I'm going to pass over to James. So he is going to do the research. He's going to create the blog. He's going to iterate it. He's going to load it up into WordPress, and then he's going to do some final edits. Okay, are you ready to go, James?
I am.
I'm going to close my slides down. And you can share your screen.
Right, so I'll just share my screen now then. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to share the whole screen because it's easier. I think I'm going to do that. So here we go. Right, so I also shared this in the chat a few minutes ago because people were asking about the blog creation process that we were describing. And so I shared the link to this post. I will caveat again that this one was produced literally just this morning. And usually we do a bit more human editorial. I don't think there's any issues with this one, but you guys might prove me wrong. There hasn't been huge amounts of human editorial time. And so
normally, you started this a couple of hours ago. Normally it'd take you most of the day just to do the research if you were doing it manually.
Yeah. So it compresses it. The point I'm making is that this particular one, because I haven't looked at it, it might still have 1 or 2 issues with it. But hopefully it shouldn't. So the point of this one is to give a weekly update on search news. So that can cover SEO, it can cover PPC, all the different areas of search and Google and AI and stuff like that. And so it has kind of a table of contents, so it gives basically like a little overview at the top, and it has a table of contents, and you can click on those and it will jump you down to the relevant section. And then you can click on these links, and then it will go out to the cited source. So in this case, it was something from SEO Roundtable. I think in this case, we pull stuff from like SEO Roundtable, Stone Temple, Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, Google's developers blog. There's other stuff as well. I think we look at some of the blogs for some of the platform providers like Ahrefs and SEMrush and stuff like that. And so essentially what it does is, you know, Claude Code will produce me a post like this. It will do all the research. It will write the post. It will upload it. It will attempt to do some humanization. So it reads a bit less AI-like. I'm not saying that I can't improve it in that area. Probably I can.
But it doesn't have to be marketing, does it? It can be any subject.
It can be anything, yeah. So you could go and look up, you could just open Claude Code on the web, regular Claude or regular Chat GPT on the web, and you could just be like, what are some good feeds of information for like tech news in medical or something like that. You could ask it to give you RSS feeds for that. You could really do it for whatever you want. It's not limited to search, but that was my specific application, because that's still a bunch of stuff that I do in my day job, right? So in this case, in order to produce this, I was here inside of Claude Code, right? And I'd basically be, I basically have down the sidebar there. So I think I might actually just zoom this in a little bit more as well. I don't know if you can see down the sidebar here, but there's loads of different projects that I've built, and each project has an individual session in Claude Code. And when that session's memory begins to run out, I ask it to write a handover and sort of like rebake itself and repush itself to GitHub. And then I start a new session and I give it the handover prompt. Some of that stuff has been automated now. So if you just keep typing and typing and typing, when the memory for an individual session is running out, it will automatically compact everything by itself. But I don't like the way it does it. I like to be more in control of the memory that it's writing and what kind of direction it's going in. So I tend to give
practice anyway, isn't it, to let it fill up, because it stops working.
Yeah, by the time that the little circle down, I don't know if you guys can see, it's this absolutely tiny circle next to where it says Fable 5 high at the bottom, and just to the right you have this tiny circle with a blue bit in, and I can highlight it there. By the time that gets to 60 or 80%, you know, the performance starts to degrade, doesn't it? So, but usually what I would do is I'd boot up my tool. So this is my Search News blog creator, and I would say, yes, I would like a new post, please. And it's already programmed inside of its memory files and its Python scripts and everything that it's created as a part of this project. So of which skills are one part, but there's other parts as well to this project. It will connect with all of its files. It will know all of the RSS feeds to check. It will go and look at the recent news. It will check. I think it checks like 15 different RSS feeds.
Don't scroll so quickly to let people have a chance to read it. And you do need to expand your screen to be able to read it. Top right.
Do you want me to what? Do you want me to just zoom in more?
No, I think the audience need to expand their screen as well.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. So in any case, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to do a fresh execution. So it will go and start working. And I might jump between that and this example, which is one that I did earlier. This is the kind of blue Peter. Oh, here's one I did earlier thing. And over here is the environment where I would create a new post. So I had to actually give it some preparation. Because for this demonstration, it had to know that it's not going to basically alter its project files and update itself with learnings. It's just doing a one-off execution to show you guys it basically uploading to WordPress and stuff like that. So that's what all this stuff is up here, but you can pretty much ignore that. Usually what I would type in here is I would just say, okay, I am ready for this week's post. Please create it like this, and it will have a think for a little while, and it will basically start going. So it's aware that it's doing a demo because I've told it that, and that's just so that it will upload the post and stuff to WordPress, but it won't do anything silly like set it live. because I've already done this week's one this morning, and we don't want 2 posts that are largely covering
But
the
it
same
doesn't.
news.
It doesn't sell it live anyway, does it? It will make it a draft, but we have to go
well,
in.
you know, I'm just very careful, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if it's running a demo, I like it to know that it's a demo. What you're saying is right. It just uploads it in draft mode in WordPress, and then we check it. But I just don't want it. I not only do I not want that going wrong, I don't want anything that I haven't thought about going wrong, right? So I'm giving it some guardrails. So off it goes, and it's beginning to read some files and stuff. While it's doing that, because this might actually be quite slow, because sometimes Claude Code, especially the new Fable model, it's very thorough and it's really good, but it can be a little bit slow. So while it's doing all of this stuff, I'm going to go back to the one that I did earlier, which is over here, and I'm going to show you guys a bit of this. So here you can see I said, yeah, I want this week's post. Off you go and create me a post. And so the first thing that it did is it looked at all of the 15 RSS feeds that I gave it. And it actually made a small adaptation. So one of the feeds that I give it is actually that particular site. They use kind of almost like their own custom feed language. It's not like Atom or RSS or anything like that, and it's not XML either. It's kind of like it's its own thing. So it actually picked up on that, and it said, okay, I've noticed that in this particular one, I'm getting a lot of JavaScript back. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to execute Python so that I can cut down what it comes back with so it's sensible and I can have a better look at it. So that's what it did there. And it basically batched out all of the 15 RSS feeds, and it went to have a look at all of those. And once it had looked at all the RSS feeds, it looked at basically the URL strings to see what they said, because the URL strings for individual blog posts are usually basically very similar to the H1 that's used on the page, which is like the main heading that's used on the page. So most of the time for an individual post, the little bit at the end of the URL slug is almost like the title. And based on that, it kind of did a sanity check, and it then basically worked out which of the posts it felt by their headlines would be very important information. And it kind of did a balance of which stuff sounded important, but also trying to stick a bit more to the more authoritative sources, like stuff from the Google developers blog and Search Engine Land and stuff like that. So there's kind of a balance there of what sounds important, but try not to get sucked in too much by clickbait titles as well. There's kind of that kind of logic programmed into it, right?
So the skill and the prompt for doing the scraping is not that complicated, because really all you're asking it to do is you're giving it quite distinct instructions. You're asking it to go and get that information, bring it back in a certain way. But it's the next one when you create the content which requires the building, because I'm just warning you, we've got 20 minutes, so I want you to make sure you've got enough time for the next stage.
Yeah, that's fine. So if you look, this execution is only actually this long. So if anything, I think we're pretty much ahead. So once it's basically taken all of the posts from the RSS feeds, and it sort of had a guess at what it thought was more important of the posts within the last 7 days from all of those different RSS feeds, from Search Engine Land, from SEO Roundtable, from Google developers blogs. It actually sort of got a narrower list of, okay, these ones were recent and also they sound important and were from important sources. And once it had done that, it actually opened to the individual posts as well to learn more about them. Because obviously in an RSS feed, the most you're really going to get is like the title of the post, the URL, and a very short description of what it's about, right? And you might not even get that. It might actually, in many cases, just be the URL or just be the title and URL with no description. So that was an important part for it to do, to actually go, okay, you think that these posts are important and you're going to load them into the post that we're going to write together, but you do need to check the actual interior content of those posts so that you truly understand them, instead of just trying to understand everything about them purely just from their snippet in an RSS feed, which is probably going to be fairly minimal. So it had to do that as well. And then once it did that, it basically created the post. It will do that in a number of ways. So it will create a version of it that can be uploaded to WordPress, which is in HTML. And it will also create me, if I wanted to preview it quickly, it will create me an RTF document in my downloads. So RTF is just like rich text format. And you can open RTF files in Microsoft Word, and they just are basically a bit smaller, and they support formatting, but it's minimal. So they support things like links, and they support things like bold text and stuff like that. So I can actually open it and look at it in Microsoft Word, and just kind of get the lay of the land and see kind of what it's saying. And then also it will begin to upload the post as well.
Yeah, I think you need to describe a little bit more about how you trained the prompt for or that skill. Maybe have you got? I didn't intend to do this, but we probably should have thought of it when we met earlier. Yeah. Is it possible to click in the skill to show them what the skill looks like?
Probably. I mean, I can ask it here, so I can say, where do your projects and skill/memory MD files live? Can you give me the folder path for me?
One of the things that you guys will learn really quickly is that we spend huge amounts of time trying to find files that are very complicated filing structure that often Claude has created for you. And what we end up doing is, instead of attaching files which take up a lot of space and take a lot of tokens, is we provide the path of where it is in your directory, which is just about to do now, and then we go and find it, or we will give Claude that path. So we're not attaching it, it goes and looks at it. So that takes a lot less tokens, because if you attached everything, it would eat your $20 credit very quickly. I mean, just to give you some context, James, myself, and Darren, we get through $200 of credit a month, and sometimes we've actually run out. I mean, when me and Darren were on our own, we're just about okay, but when James joined our little builder club, we started to hit the limits quite quickly. Maybe you can click on so show them what a path is.
This is basically where all of my memory for all of my different projects lives, right? And you can see I've got all these separate memory MD files, and they just contain fragments of memories and information for the AI, so that it has basic structures on basic things. But there's also skills as well. And skills are, so this is the skill for this particular project. And it contains a Photoshop document where it can just quickly edit some text and regenerate me a new image each week. And the reason I did that was, so I actually make it operate Photoshop. The reason I did that was
interesting. I don't do that. I use it. I make it use OpenAI.
I know, and I did start doing that, but every now and then it would do something like it would create an image, but it'd be really weirdly zoomed in and cropped off the side. And I didn't find it as consistent. So what I did is I taught it to operate Photoshop, a Photoshop template, and just edit certain text. And therefore it can be exactly the same every single time.
And just to explain everybody, an MD file, it stands for Markdown. It's just a text file. It's just an instruction. It's just like a recipe. Exactly. Yeah. But it uses these code to help you understand what's important. It's a bit like HTML, an H1 or H2 tag. So if you've got one hashtag, that means it's really important. Two is, like an H2 is less
subheading.
Important.
Yeah, so it's like, this is like a H1 or main heading. This is like a subheading, and you can add more hashes and stuff.
And to be honest, guys, you don't have to know how to write this from scratch. We don't do it like that. What we do is we work with it to build a document that we really like, or a blog that we really like. And then we say, can you save this as a skill?
Yeah.
And it will know to put all these different parts together.
There might already be a skill, and I might be working inside of Claude Code, and I might be producing a new type of blog post that I've not produced before, and I have to teach it a bit extra stuff. And I might say, oh, could you update your memory MD files and also your skill so that in the future you'll be able to do this? And it will go in here and it will be doing most of this for me. Can tweak it manually if I want to.
And this is like a mega prompt, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is the skill for the search news blog, right? And it contains everything, all of the information that it needs, hard rules, never fetch feeds with web fetch. So the example of that particular rule, when you're working in Claude Code and you're like, I want you to check out these 15 RSS feeds, Claude Code will usually use its inbuilt checker to check things on the web, which is called web fetch. But the problem with it is it commonly gets blocked all the time by all of these anti-AI things that basically say, no, we don't want AI to read our content. So what you can do is you can basically say, don't use web fetch. Instead of using web fetch, spin up a headless browser in something like Python or JavaScript and use that instead. And thereby you can bypass all of that stuff.
And this is what we meant by the fact that Claude Code, when you have it on your desktop, not only can it read your files and not only can it talk to APIs like Photoshop, it can also use tools which allow it to do these more complicated things. So the quality of everything is much better.
And in my case, I have a really old school Photoshop installed. I think it's like CS5 from before they changed. So it's from before they changed Photoshop to be like what you call like software as a service, right?
So can you show them what it created? Is this the blog that it created earlier on then, James?
So this is the skill still, right? Yeah. So, but what I wanted to just show is, you were saying this is a mega prompt. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like 500. I just wanted to get to the bottom and show the row count. So like 576 rows of prompting, right? Which is exactly what Anne was saying. So shall I show one of the posts that it created earlier now?
Yeah, or did you run one just a minute ago? Is that one finished?
I did run one. Let's check in and see what it's doing. So I said, I want you to do this one. Please create it. And you can see the skeleton is loaded. So the skeleton is like the rich text template and the HTML template for WordPress and the Photoshop template and all that stuff. And it's basically just saying, yeah, the demo run is complete. You can edit it here or you can preview it here. So I've told my Claude Code, because one thing it was doing is it was being like, yep, I've uploaded it, job done. And I was like, can you give me the backend URL so I can actually edit it? So it's all little things like that you need to teach it, little things here and there, right? So if I go over here, it says it's created a draft, right? So I'm going to go and look over here and let's just, hopefully our website's not down. Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. So you can see.
The reason this is so important, the next step, and this is the bit that most people get caught on, is because most people think they can create quite good quality content. I mean, the quality of the content will vary depending on how well you know how to prompt and how much you trained it. Obviously, we've given you a research layer in there as well, but most people don't know that you can actually get Claude to load it up.
To do the upload.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm going to post the blog in because I actually wrote a blog on this because there was lots of people asking how to do this. So
shall I show you this bit quickly as well, Anne?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So essentially, I have enabled my Claude Code to not just create the post, but also to upload it in draft mode to WordPress, right? And you can see it's not automatically published because in the top right there's a blue publish button, so it's not published yet. So the way that I did that is I had to go into my user profile in our WordPress, which was in here, and I had to click this button here, which is add an application password, right? So don't worry, this isn't giving you my application password. That's just the last IP address that I believe accessed it or something like that. I don't think it actually shows in this menu the actual application password, right? So I clicked that and that generated an application password. I had to copy that down. And then I went back into Claude Code and I was like, oh, I actually want you to upload this now. Here's an application password that you could use, which is basically like an API key for certain publishing actions within a specific WordPress website. So if you're using something different, like you're using Shopify or Squarespace or Magento or something like that, there might actually be a different thing that you have to do to kind of connect to like the API backend of your website. In WordPress, it's really easy. You just go to the your user profile and you just add an application password, and it really is pretty simple. So that's how I did it. So I'm just going to check back in on Claude Code again as well. So if I just go to the demo that we're running, so that was the edit URL that it gave me. Which is over here. So this is the post that it created. It's also given me a preview link as well, which is super lazy of me because all I need to do is go in the edit URL and there's like one button at the top I have to click up here somewhere to preview it. But I was like, no, I just want it to do it for me. And so when I click on that, you can see that this doesn't have a live URL name. It's just like $P equals, which is the page ID. And then this would only be accessible to logged in users, but allows me to basically preview it. And then I can check things like, oh, are all the jump links working correctly? So if I click this one, GPT live brings, yep, that seems to work correctly. I can start clicking on some of these links to check that they are working. It does its own internal gated checks, as I said earlier. So it actually will create this and then go through itself and check if any of the links are broken and patch them itself, right? So it will do pretty much everything. Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to show you guys, I think.
So could you just show them how we do it slightly differently? Can you show them one of my blogs? And then So we don't do exactly the same, and we've trained them in slightly different ways.
Yeah. So this is one of yours, Anne, if you would like to, I'll scroll down slowly.
Yeah, so basically I have the same heading at the top with the date changing every week. So this was on Monday. So on Sunday, I do the research and write the blog and schedule it for Monday morning. So it picks up the most important and does a bit of summary. Then it's got the contents, and mine's divided into 5 sections. So AI news, AI in marketing, AI in management, AI in e-commerce and retail, and then other sectors. And then there's this is just sort of showing you what's in the index, and then it goes through each one. And I've laid mine out slightly differently. So the heading is link, and then sometimes these articles there's actually more than one source talking about the same story. So I'll have a couple of different links in there. But what I've done is I put a why it matters halfway down. So, and some of mine are longer, some of them are a bit shorter. That one's a particularly long one. But the why it matters is quite nice because then it gives you an idea. And then what I've done at the bottom, which is all the way down, is I've added in some key takeaways and some conclusions and some FAQs. So I'm trying to make it quite helpful. And then finally, I've got my 2 calls for action, which is the Claude Code Guide, which we shared earlier, and then the Thursday AI Club. So I'm hoping that that will allow people to, to sort of contact us or join the Thursday AI Club. So that's where I get to on a Monday morning. Now I do something different. I take it to a different level. Now, do you do anything with yours, or do you just leave it on the blog, James?
As in, do I? Oh, that might be extra stuff that you do. Do you mean like, do I then automate LinkedIn posts and stuff? No, I don't currently. I probably should.
Okay, well, let me show you what we do it. So we've given you the live build. I'm just going to expand it.
Do you want?
I've just put in the chat the link to the post to tell you how to set up the API for using WordPress and using Claude Code with WordPress. So these are some of the skills. Now they're not necessarily exactly.
Just so I know, are you sharing screen now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool.
So I'm using the slide share.
Great.
So you should be able to see it. Yeah. Can you see it? Yeah. Okay. So these aren't necessarily the same naming convention as what James has got. Mine's called News Scraper, AI News Blog Writer, Blog Image, WP Content Publish, and LinkedIn Post, and Claude MD. That's really the file that sort of sits over all of our activities and explains what my job is, how I hate Americanisms, etc. So each of these are an individual skill. But what I do next is I will, oops, I've just rejected that call. I do this as well. So I use the blog, and then I create a LinkedIn post, and I send it out on a Monday morning. Now, I used to build a carousel using a template, but I've stopped doing that now. What I do is I take the image from my LinkedIn post and from my blog, and I get rid of the image on the right-hand side, and I put some bullet points, and I post that up into LinkedIn. So that goes out sort of 7 o'clock on a Monday morning. But because of the way that the algorithms work, even though I've got 18,000 contacts, I don't get huge amounts of coverage. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to find a way of getting to more people. So what I've done is I've created a LinkedIn newsletter. So I have another step which creates my newsletter. So I'm going to show that now. I need to now share. So you might have to I think it's fine. Share screen. So what I've done is I've basically created a content engine.
Your screen isn't sharing.
Is it sharing now?
No. Can you guys? Oh wait, I think it's loading. I see a big black box has appeared and it says loading.
Should see publishing content with WordPress with Claude Code Skills and REST.
It's just loaded. It was lagging a bit, so it's just loaded.
So this was the blog post that I told you about. And then if I go into LinkedIn and I go to my own profile, what you can see, and please do sign up because this is useful content, is can you see I've got view my newsletter. So if you click on view my newsletter, this gives you all the newsletters, and this goes. I used to do it on a Monday. Now I do it on a Tuesday because I want to post something separate every day. And what you'll see is this is the subscribers. So I've got less subscribers than I did last week. So I got 12 this week. I must have had 20 last week because we did an event. So you always get more. But I've got 1,500 subscribers in a couple of months. I can create a new edition, but then you can see. Yeah, hello.
I think we're still seeing the Anicca Digital website publishing content and stuff. I think your screen share, it works, but then it freezes and it might be a bandwidth thing.
Let me try again. Maybe it was not screen sharing the whole. Maybe it was just doing the tab rather.
Yeah, or it could have been frozen, so it could be either. So.
Okay, that's better. So I'm going to go back. So that looks better. Just going to take a little while. So can you see here, I'm on my LinkedIn post, and if you haven't connected me, please do. And you can see I've got view my newsletter. And then what happens is it's like a thread, and if you get a subscriber, they get it sent into their email. So not only do people see it on LinkedIn because you post it, but actually it gets circulated out as well. I don't think it likes that I've got, let me just see if I can get that one to work. Yeah. One I prepared earlier. The trouble with my Chrome is it doesn't like this heat at all. There you go. So this is what it looks like. You can see there's 15 editions. To be honest, I did the first ones. I created articles instead of newsletter. It was quite difficult to work out how to do this, actually. And then if I want to create a new one, what I do is I find the one from last week and then I clone.
Hi everyone. I think maybe Anne's internet has possibly just crashed, but it could also be a big marker thing as well, because I've been having, I don't know if anyone else is getting this, but I keep getting a red banner at the top that says, "Oh, network instability issues" and stuff like that. So my guess is that Anne's laptop might have died during the heat, or it might actually be a big marker thing to do with this environment. But I think mostly, I'm sure she's probably on her way back, for anyone who wants to wait around a bit. Having said that, I think that we probably got through most of what we needed to. So, oh, yeah, and there's just something popped up there as well if you guys want to join. There we go. Yeah, so anyone who wants to stay around, I'll just see if Anne pops back. For the rest of you guys, yeah, just really thank you for attending. We always like to share information on what we're doing, new AI stuff, and kind of how everything all fits together and stuff like that as well. So I'm just going to give it a minute or two and see if Anne comes back. Let's have a look here. Oh, I see you there, Anne. I was just explaining to people that, heat issues, your laptop. I was also getting some instability. I actually got booted and had to rejoin. I was getting some issues, big marker network stability stuff. So, but I did say to everyone that I thought, I think we've got through most of what we wanted to go through. The pop-ups for the AI club and the other bits have appeared and gone away again. So that stuff seems to have worked. And it might be you that has launched that. I can see you there in the chat. And I did say to people, in case anyone wanted to see the rest of what you were going to present, I said I'd wait a little bit until you come back, but I don't know. We should finish now. Okay, yeah, because technology issues. Okay, that's fine. All right, then, everyone. Well, yeah, I guess we're going to finish here then. I mean, we'd basically gotten right to the end of demoing and everything anyway, right? So we'd shown you Claude Code and how it operates, and we'd shown the posts that we create and kind of gone through the logic and the way that it does that and things like that. And we've also intermittently throughout this session been putting links to the Thursday AI Club in the chat as well. And we had all the stuff at the end there. So, yeah, I think what we will do is we will call it here. We'll call it a wrap. And, yeah, just thank you.